Hello guys, welcome to yet another video of Pharma Guru. So as we have promised, in this video we will be dealing about the regulation of blood pressure part 2, that is the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system. So we will see the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system through this diagram. This is a heart, obviously, through which systemic circulation is occurring. From the systemic circulation there is blood supply to the kidney. This is the afferent arteriole, this is the efferent arterioles. Then the supply of blood to the kidney entering again into the systemic circulation, going into the lungs and different parts of the body, and finally entering into the heart. So what happens when there is a reduced blood pressure or the patient is having a hypotensive condition, right? Listen, whenever there is a reduced blood pressure, the amount of blood entering into the systemic circulation will be low. Sure. Now since the blood entering or present in the systemic circulation is low, the amount of blood entering into the afferent arterioles or the one that is entering into the kidney will be low. Okay. So now we are knowing that the blood entering into these blood vessels are low. So the blood vessels in the kidney contains a specific kind of smooth muscles that are known as Purkinje cells. What are they known as? Are known as the Purkinje cells. So these one, the one that have drawn in black, are the Purkinje cells. Adjacent to the Purkinje cells, there are some other cells that are known as the macula densa. The macula densa. And below to the macula densa, certain cells that are attached to the nephrons. See, there are 1 million nephrons in the kidney. I have drawn only one. So the cells closer to the macula densa that is attached to the nephron, that is the DCT, is known as Lasix cells. Okay. Now all these structures combine up and it is known as the juxtaglomerular apparatus. This is known as the juxtaglomerular apparatus. Now this is very important in the renin-angiotensin mechanism. Why? See, we have talked where that the blood entering into the afferent arterioles is less. In normal condition, this juxtaglomerular apparatus is somewhat widened. Okay, it is open. Now when the blood pressure is low, that is reduced blood pressure is here, the juxtaglomerular apparatus kind of closes. It closes itself. So whenever such a situation occurs, the Purkinje cell detects this. The Purkinje cell will detect the reduced blood pressure, and what does this Purkinje cell do? It will activate the juxtaglomerular apparatus. It will activate the juxtaglomerular apparatus to release some enzyme into the systemic circulation. So the juxtaglomerular apparatus will release certain enzymes into the systemic circulation or to the blood supply in the kidney. One more thing. Think of that reduced blood is passing through this, so the amount of filtrate getting into the nephron will be less, and the force with which the filtrate will be passing through the nephron will be less, because here we have less filtrate, so slowly the filtrate will go. If we had normal filtrate level, means there is a huge amount of filtrate, the filtrate would have passed faster. Now since the filtrate is slow, it will pass slowly through these structures of the nephron. And since the fluid is passing very slowly through the nephrons, it is easy for the nephrons to absorb all the electrolytes and essential items from the filtrate. Okay, so what happens in that condition? That since the filtrate is passing very slowly, all the sodiums will be reabsorbed very quickly. And as soon as the filtrate reaches here near the Lasix cells, near the Lasix cell, what happens? The sodium concentration of the filtrate is very low than the normal. And who will detect this? Obviously the Lasix cells will detect this, the blue ones that is closer to the nephrons. The Lasix cells will detect the reduced concentration of sodium, and now what happens is this Lasix cell will stimulate the juxtaglomerular apparatus to release some enzymes into the circulation. Both the enzymes released either by the activation of Purkinje and or Lasix cell is the renin. Okay. So renin is released from the kidney as a result of reduced blood pressure by the activation of Purkinje cells or the Lasix cells. Now through the systemic circulation, the renin will pass all the way into the circulation, right? Now the renin has come here into the circulation. Our circulation or our systemic circulation is already loaded with a huge amount of another enzyme, that is angiotensinogen. It is loaded with angiotensinogen. Now when this angiotensinogen is an inactive protein. Now when this renin comes in contact with the angiotensinogen, what happens is the angiotensinogen, that is inactive molecule, gets converted into an active substance, that is angiotensinogen 1. That is angiotensin 1. This angiotensin 1 is a decapeptide. Why am I calling it a decapeptide? Is because the angiotensin 1 is made up of 10 amino acids. Fine. Renin is released by the kidney, which comes in contact to the angiotensinogen already present in the systemic circulation and converts it into an active molecule, that is angiotensin 1, which is a decapeptide. Now this angiotensin 1 will revolve throughout our body in the systemic circulation, and finally it will reach into the lungs. Our lungs is occupied by a very special kind of enzyme that is known as the ACE. What is ACE? ACE is angiotensin converting enzyme. So now when this angiotensin 1 will enter into the lungs, these enzymes, that is the angiotensin converting enzymes present in the lungs, will act on the angiotensin 1 and will convert the angiotensin 1 into an enzyme that is known as angiotensin 2. Angiotensin 2, and the angiotensin 2 is an octapeptide. Now what actually happened is, when angiotensin 1 reached the lungs, the ACE, that is the angiotensin converting enzyme, came and removed 2 amino acids from the angiotensin 1, making the decapeptide into octapeptide. Now this angiotensin 2 will eventually enter into the heart and then into the systemic circulation. Now when angiotensin comes into the systemic circulation, the real progress will start here. The angiotensin 2 is a powerful vasoconstrictor. We all know. How does that vasoconstriction happen is, the blood vessels in our body contains the receptors for angiotensin 2. These angiotensin 2 goes and binds to the receptors present on the blood vessel surfaces, and what does that binding lead to is the influx of calcium into the blood vessels. Now since there is influx of calcium, there is resultant as vasoconstriction. That is, angiotensin 2 goes and binds to these receptors present on the cell surface of the blood vessels, calcium influx occurs and vasoconstriction occurs. Now this vasoconstriction occurs whole throughout our body. So this vasoconstriction occurs throughout our body. So what will happen? We will have venoconstriction as well as arterioconstriction. Okay, since this vasoconstriction occurs throughout our body, we will have the venoconstriction and arterioconstriction. Now what does this venoconstriction and arterioconstriction will lead to? Now what does the vein carry? The vein carries deoxygenated blood that is to be provided to the heart, right? Whenever there is venoconstriction, the veins that carry blood to the heart will constrict. What happens? Faster blood flow occurs, that is, more blood will be flowing through the venous system. That means more blood will be reaching the heart, right? Due to venoconstriction, more blood will be reaching the heart. Now since more blood is reaching the heart, what the heart can do? The heart can pump more blood. That is, there is increased cardiac output. And now if we recall what we have learned in the last video, if there is increased cardiac output, there is increased systolic blood pressure. So we have talked why cardiac output increases and systolic blood pressure increases in the previous video. So that is how the vasoconstriction, kind of venoconstriction, will lead to increased systolic blood pressure. Now second one is the arterioconstriction, right? What are aorta or arteries? The ones that carry blood from the heart to different parts of the body. Whenever there is arterioconstriction, see, just remember what we have talked in the previous video. Whenever there is arterioconstriction, what is increasing? Obviously the total peripheral resistance will increase, right? Now when there is increased total peripheral resistance, obviously what will increase is the diastolic blood pressure. So that is how the renin-angiotensin mechanism acts, right? One more thing that happens is, when this angiotensin 2 is released into the systemic circulation, it will reach our CNS, right? Specifically in our CNS, in the hypothalamus. This is our CNS. So through the systemic circulation, it will reach our hypothalamus. and this angiotensinogen 2 in the hypothalamus will stimulate the thirst center. What will it stimulate? The thirst center, right? Now when thirst center is stimulated, we will tend to have a lot of thirst. We will take a lot of water, means we are increasing the body fluid, we are increasing the blood volume. Now when the blood volume is increased, obviously the cardiac output will be increased, the systemic blood pressure will also be increased, right? Now you all must be wondering that we were talking about renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system, and till now we are dealing only with renin and angiotensin. Now the aldosterone will come into action. What happens is, as we have the angiotensin 2 present in the systemic circulation, this is our adrenal gland which will provide aldosterone. Now when this angiotensin 2 present in the systemic circulation reaches to this, it will have a kind of receptors present on its surface. Now when the angiotensinogen 2 comes and bind to these receptors, what will be released is the aldosterone. The aldosterone will be released into the systemic circulation, right? The aldosterone will now be released into the systemic circulation. Now what does this aldosterone do? This aldosterone will pass through all the systemic circulation and again will come into the kidney. In the kidney, we know in the nephron what all parts we have. We have PCT, we have Henle's loop, we will have DCT, we will have collecting duct and many other structures. So when the aldosterone reaches the kidney, what happens? This aldosterone will bind to the DCT, that is the distal convoluted tubule. The aldosterone will bind to the DCT. On DCT, where the DCT have a specific kind of cells known as the principal cells. So these aldosterones will bind to the principal cells present on the DCT. Now what happens when this aldosterone binds to the DCT is, the aldosterone will stimulate the principal cells and the DCT to absorb sodium. So more amount of sodium will be absorbed into the circulation. More amount of sodium will be absorbed into the circulation. Now as we all know, in the direction of movement of sodium, what follows the sodium is water. So what happens is, when aldosterone binds, more sodium is absorbed, more water will be absorbed. When there is more water absorption, what increases? The blood volume increases, and then again the same phenomena. When blood volume increases, cardiac output will increase, and when cardiac output increases, we know the systemic blood pressure will increase. So this is actually what renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system is. There is nothing more into this. I won't like to extend this video further talking about all this useless stuff here. So this is renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system. I hope you have understood. I am stopping the video right here. Just revise what we have understood, and if you have any doubt, any queries or any suggestions, please do write in the comment section. Till then, stay safe, take care, keep learning, and please do subscribe the channel.